Hello and welcome to the Cycle of Care podcast. I'm your host, Mona Zignago. Recently, I watched a young student's TikTok. She started by stating that she was going to do something different this time and talk about a different topic than she usually would. She then commented that she might not get very many likes or even any likes at all, but she was okay with that because the topic was meaningful to her. Separate from this, I overheard a conversation about people unsubscribing from someone's Instagram account. All of this virtual feedback got me thinking about feedback in general, the various ways we can receive it, the various ways it can be given, and the value we place on positive and negative feedback we receive in person and the virtual feedback in likes and unlikes and unsubscribes in the world we live in today. So, today we're diving into a topic that touches any personal, professional, academic, really absolutely any space we're in, feedback. Today, we're going to dig into when is feedback valuable and when is it, well, not. Essentially, what I'm saying is we are not measured by a lack of likes or by our unsubscribes, and I have the research to prove it. Although it may feel that way at times, our lives are not measured by how many people criticize us or disagree with us. They are measured by the good we are doing and by how closely we are living in alignment with our values and our mission and vision. We can consider measuring success for ourselves through the goals we set, the boundaries we hold around feedback, and our ability to recognize what feedback is true for us and aligned with who we are, and when enough feedback is truly enough. We grow when we can distinguish between feedback that is generative and feedback that is simply noise, all while staying deeply focused and grounded in our mission, vision, and core values. When we think about the cycle of care, which is the giving and receiving of energy that flows between us all, there are 4 key elements in the cycle of care model of relationships, listening, thinking, and responding. The cycle of care model is a way for us to provide care to others and to ourselves and to discern where the problems within the 4 elements of relationships, listening, thinking, and responding are so that we can find solutions. When we think about the cycle of care, that ongoing giving and receiving of energy that flows between us, its purpose isn't just to improve how we show up for others. It is a way to notice when this energy or care is facilitated between us and when it is not. And it provides us with a way to determine where the care is being facilitated or disrupted. Are things going well in our relationship, with our listening for information, with our thinking about that information, with our responding to the information? We ask ourselves, where within these 4 elements of relationships, listening, thinking, and responding, where is care being facilitated? And if there's a disruption, where is that disruption? Is it with our relationship, our listening for information? Do we need more information? With our thinking? Are we analyzing all the information correctly? Or is the disruption with our response? Our response? The other person's response? And if so, what will we do about this? So, the cycle of care. It's also a framework to help us care for ourselves and others and make thoughtful analyses and caring decisions. Again, the model is built around the 4 key elements of relationships, listening, thinking, and responding. These aren't steps, they're a filter we can use to help us discern what is truly happening in a situation that either facilitates energy between us or disrupts that energy. So, when it comes to feedback, especially that kind that stings or feels unfair, untrue, or heavy, the cycle of care can guide us. Not all feedback deserves the same space in our minds and hearts, and not all voices are coming from a place of care. Not all feedback comes from a place of the other person truly caring for us, but rather sometimes it's more about the person giving the feedback than about us. So let's walk through that. Relationships ask, who is this person to me? Do they know my work, my values, my goals? Are they in relationship with me, or are they reacting from ego, competition, or distance? What is my relationship to this person? Does this person even know me? Do I even know this person? Listening asks, what are they really saying? What tone is it wrapped up in? Are they pushing me to grow in a good and generative way? Or are they asking me to take up less space and shrink? Thinking allows us to slow down and analyze. Does this feedback align with what I value? Is it consistent with what others I trust have said? Is this feedback coming from a place of care or a place of ego? Or a place where this person will never be satisfied with anything I say or do? And responding. Responding doesn't mean agreeing or even replying. Sometimes our best response is no response at all. Sometimes it's integrating the insight and growing from it. Sometimes it's saying, this doesn't belong to me. I am not measured by likes and unsubscribes. This is how we use the cycle of care to discern what feedback to take and what to let go of. Because here's the truth. Our lives are not measured by likes and unsubscribes. They're not measured by in-person feedback either, as to who pushes back, who disagrees, who's angry with you, or who walks away. They're measured by whether we're walking in alignment with our own mission, vision, and core values. The cycle of care gives us a way to stay rooted in that, even when voices around us get loud, confusing, judgy, dismissive, and negative. Sometimes, for various reasons, we might feel like we have to take every piece of feedback that comes our way. Maybe we think we have to listen to everyone who provides us with feedback because we think it'll get us more likes, make us better, satisfy the customer, or it will quiet the squeaky wheel staff member. But research says not all feedback is equal, and not all voices should carry the same weight. In fact, research shows a small vocal minority often dominates the conversation, while the silent majority stays quiet. So when criticism feels like it is overwhelming us and bringing us down, the loudest voices do not always equal the majority of people in your life. And right there is our invitation to decide which voices we allow in, which voices we listen to, which voices have value to bring to our work and our lives. Like I said earlier, we are not measured by a lack of likes or by our unsubscribes, and I have the research to prove it. Research tells us that the loudest voices in a conversation or in a feedback loop are not always representative of the majority. For example, a study in 2019 found that people's perceptions about the size and influence of people in their social networks are often distorted. They showed that biases don't necessarily come from personality or moral failings alone, but from the structure of the networks themselves, how people connect, who they listen to, and how clustered or like-minded the clusters are. What this means for us, the individuals who shout the loudest or leave the most unsubscribed notices may not reflect what most people think or feel. Their visibility is amplified by system dynamics, not necessarily by moral authority or majority support. Related to this, researchers at New York University concluded that online platforms often resemble a funhouse mirror, reflecting a distorted image of society created by a small but vocal minority of users. In these environments, the voices that dominate tend to be extreme, visible, and persistent, even though they are numerically few. For our purposes, that suggests this: when feedback comes in aggressively across many platforms or from seemingly many people, it may feel like the majority is speaking, but the data tells us it may not be. As such, we don't have to treat every voice equally. We can use the cycle of care to determine what type of relationship we have with this person, listen with wisdom, think with purpose, and decide which voices deserve a response and which do not. Of course, not everything we are going to talk about today has to do with online feedback. Feedback comes in all shapes and sizes. It comes in person as well as online, and not all feedback is created equal. Research makes clear that the quality of feedback has a really big impact. For instance, a study led by Wisniewski and colleagues in 2020 found a medium effect size for feedback on learning outcomes, but it also varied depending on how feedback was given and structured. The study emphasizes that when feedback is specific, timely, and actionable, it tends to drive improvement, whereas vague or unfocused feedback often does not. In your own work, whether as a teacher, business person, researcher, student, or a leader, this means you don't automatically accept every critique. You evaluate whether the feedback is meaningful, timely, and aligned with who you are and what your goals are. This can be really hard in the moment when negative feedback is hitting hard and bringing you down, but you can give yourself space to find yourself in the feedback. Give yourself time to process the feedback and then decide if there is anything valuable there to learn. Find who you are within the feedback, regardless of how it was delivered. Likes, unsubscribes, someone yelling at you in person, whatever it may be. And decide what is true for you. Decide who you are within the feedback and what is helpful and what is not. Interestingly enough, in workplace settings, feedback is most powerful when paired with autonomy and meaning. A research brief from the U.S. Merit Systems Protection Board in 2018 found that employees who received constructive feedback and had sufficient autonomy and meaning in their work were far more likely to exhibit high performance behaviors. This means feedback that says, here's how you can move forward, rather than only highlighting what you did wrong. For our purposes, when we receive feedback, again, where are you in the feedback? Ask yourself, does this help me to determine my response in this situation? Does this align with my values and give me space to grow? If not, it might be less about supporting us and more about someone else's agenda. It's crazy to me how often we think feedback is about us, when too often it has nothing to do with us and is more about the other person and what they have going on. This is where the cycle of care comes in. What is your relationship with the person giving you feedback? Do you need to listen for more information? Do you have all the details you need? And when you think about the feedback, does it align with who you are and what you value? And finally, thinking about the other person's feedback response to you. Do you need to respond to their feedback, or is it better to just walk away? It is important to remember that giving and receiving feedback is an art as much as a science. A paper by Winstone et al. In 2023 argues for a more cohesive or connected framework of feedback. The takeaway from this was that feedback works best when it's tailored to the person receiving it, when the context is clear, and when the relationship between giver and receiver is grounded in trust. In your journey, that means you get to determine whose feedback you trust. You get to determine whose voices you listen to and whose commentary you choose to act on or not. Another relevant study from 2022 talks about how hurtful and detrimental negative feedback can actually be. This study showed that excessive criticism, especially when perceived as intentional or unfair, can lead to deep relational and psychological consequences. The researchers found that when feedback is framed in a way that feels punitive or dismissive, it triggers defensiveness, anger, distancing from the critic, and lower self-efficacy. In other words, feedback can actually hurt, not just help. For you listeners, this provides critical distinction. Feedback that causes relational distancing or threatens your sense of identity isn't just harsh. It may actually be misaligned with your values or your mission. When we ask, is this feedback about me and my work, or is it about someone else's agenda or status? This study backs that question up. It invites us to refrain from accepting every critique as growth-oriented. Some critiques may signal relational misalignment, not generative insight. Not helpful. Again, find yourself in the feedback. Use the cycle of care to find what feels helpful to you within the relationships, listening, thinking, and responding, and determine what is truthful, generative feedback for you and what is out of place and misaligned with your values. What this means in real life, we need to filter feedback. Is it generative? Is it aligned with my mission and vision, my core values, and my work? Is the person giving feedback focused on me and my growth, or are they focused on themselves, on being right, proving status, or controlling the narrative? Remember, the loudest voice doesn't equal the most valid voice. Just because someone is vocal doesn't make them correct or relevant. Example. I grew up believing I had to be perfect. Everybody had to like me. I thought if I got criticism, I had failed. At one point, I received reviews on a proposal for a research conference that felt super harsh, not helpful, more about the reviewer's ego than anything. I had to ask, what from these critiques from this reviewer aligns with my vision of my research on teaching, leadership, and care, and what does not? You get to decide what feedback you take. You get to decide what you adapt, and you get to decide what you discard, because your worth is not defined by the number of critics, unsubscribed, or negative comments. It's defined by the work you do that aligns with your values and impacts the world for the better. Now it's time for our reflection activity. Our reflection today is called Galaxies Between Us. This is an adaptation from my book, Transforming Teaching Through the Cycle of Care, and is a technique that allows us to distance ourselves from negative feedback so we can gain some objectivity. This method could be helpful when we are experiencing strong emotions and are having trouble seeing clearly through the feedback. Whether the feedback is composed of unsubscribes, dislikes, or verbal criticism, the use of this strategy is meant to assist us in detaching or unhooking from the negative feedback in order to care for ourselves. So, start by taking a deep breath to calm and center yourself. As you inhale, try to bring the breath into your feet so you fill your lungs and stay strongly in your body. As you exhale, imagine you are blowing the situation away from you at light speed. Imagine calm, caring, bright stars in between you and the situation. Look at the galaxies of space in between you and the situation. Gaze at the situation from afar. Let go as you detach, unstick, and unhook yourself from that feedback. Remind yourself that you cannot please everyone. You are not that powerful. Remind yourself that you are enough. You are not measured by your unsubscribes. As you bring yourself back from this activity, carry this thought with you. Not every voice deserves to take up real estate in your head. Constructive feedback can have a place, but negative feedback that is not constructive should never define who you are or where you are going. When we place galaxies between ourselves and harsh or unhelpful criticism, we can give ourselves the space to choose what aligns with our values and release what does not. This isn't avoidance, it's care. Boundaried, intentional care. And as we tend to ourselves with this kind of care, we create more room to listen deeply, respond wisely, and care for ourselves. It's time for our Cycle of Care hero. For this episode's Cycle of Care hero, I want to honor someone who has helped me and so many others cut to the chase with feedback. She is a colleague, a friend, and a confidant. Her name is Marita. Whenever anyone around her receives harsh feedback and confides in her, she is the voice of reason, helping those around her cut through to what is actually helpful and what is not useful. Marita exemplifies the cycle of care as she listens deeply, thinks intentionally, and responds with wisdom and clarity. Marita always comes from a place of deep, intentional care for others. Marita has helped me and so many others recover from harsh feedback and pull out the pieces of positive feedback that are helpful and constructive and leave the rest behind. Marita always holds firm to providing the truth, no matter how hard it may be for her to say. Because of all these things, she is this episode's Cycle of Care hero. So, in closing, we are not measured by our unsubscribes, but rather by the good deeds we do, the way we treat people, the way we leave rooms better than when we found them. Feedback can be given in ways that are constructive versus hurtful, and research shows that when it is, we respond better. Research also tells us the loudest voices are not the majority, and we can pause and reflect. We can find ourselves in the feedback, and we can choose how we grow from there. As we close out today's episode and mark the 1-year anniversary of the Cycle of Care podcast, I want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up, for listening, for caring, for choosing to make space for reflection, care, and growth in a world that too often measures us by clicks, comments, and unsubscribes. Let's join together in this community and turn the tide. Let's bring more care into the world together. Over this past year, we've journeyed together through learning about biases, ruminating, ripple effects, brain traps, and so much more. And if there's one thing this year has taught me, it's this. We are not measured by our critics. We are measured by the care we bring into the room, by how we show up, even when it's hard, by our integrity, even when no one is watching, and by the way we choose to rise after unsubscribes, negative feedback, and disliked posts. This episode is aligned with research and a reminder that feedback doesn't define us. Our values do. Our responses to people do. Our ability to find ourselves in others' feedback and stand tall in who we are does. And when we center the cycle of care in our relationships, our listening, our thinking, and our responding, we help spread care into the world that lifts folks up instead of drags them down. We build lives and communities that are more awake and aware and bring light into the world. So here's to the past year and to the next and to the next after that, to honoring another year of Cycle of Care heroes, to bringing more awareness into the world, to bringing more intentional care into the world, and connecting today's comment to finding ourselves in the feedback and to remembering we are not measured by unsubscribes. If this message resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And whether you've been here from the beginning or this is your first episode, thank you. This community matters. You matter. You can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, or at my website, monazignago.com. And you can learn even more about care, reflection, and transformative teaching in my book, Transforming Teaching Through the Cycle of Care. Thanks again for listening. I'm Mona Zignago, and this is the Cycle of Care podcast. Until next time, move forward and commit to care. You've got this. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Take care. This podcast and all episodes within the Cycle of Care series is intended for educational and reflective purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional mental health care, therapy, or counseling. If you are experiencing emotional distress or need support, please seek guidance from a licensed mental health professional.